Hi, everyone. Welcome to this episode of Fin TV. Today, I'm joined by Adrian Hernandez, who is the founder and CEO of Simplicity Works. Adrian, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Maria.
Why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners a little bit about yourself and your journey so far?
Well, yes, Adrian Hernandez. I am an industrial engineer working in manufacturing processes. My background has been in the footwear industry, where I have patented and developed a new method of manufacturing, which has the name of 3D bonding, and that brings some benefits in order to reduce labor costs mostly, and also materials, which makes the final product more sustainable, and also allows the production closer to the consumer.
You're hitting quite a lot of good sweet spots, lowering labor costs, being able to get things closer to home, making things more sustainable. That's actually sounds pretty ideal. How do you make that happen?
Well, it happens once the method is simplified. Okay, since so many years, actually, I call it the footwear 1.0 paradigm, because
Okay.
we still has such a dependency on the machinery which has 200 years ago built or created, which is the stitching machine, the sewing machine. So this process mostly replace that process.
So basically, are you saying that the footwear industry hasn't really evolved a lot in a couple hundred years?
The main say hardware to produce the product haven't been evolved so much. Obviously,
Okay.
have brought some benefits of the evolution in terms of robotics and obviously management and systems. Yes, digital as well. However, the hardware used to make the product, it's still from that time.
Oh, really? So I get that. So it's not so much that the factories haven't changed or some processes, the actual hardware used hasn't changed. So obviously, we're all in the middle of this pandemic and in the middle of this crisis. I'm sure that the 3D printing, 3D bonding methodologies are something that people are starting to look at quite seriously because of coronavirus. Would you agree?
Yes, actually, there are some of the conversations that lately we have been maintaining, not only with our stakeholders, also with in the government. Actually, this pandemic has brought some hidden problems that the industry had, some hidden problems that the countries had in terms of not having in place strategic sectors of manufacturing, such in this case masks, of ventilators. So in this situation has brought the idea of some leaders in the world that is necessary, at least in some strategic fields, to create again strength for manufacturing.
So the kind of methodologies with just-in-time manufacturing and supply chains where you only carry a certain amount of inventory, that in this pandemic has perhaps been shown as not necessarily being of value, right?
Yeah.
And so what are the opportunities now? Do you think that this calls into question a sort of local versus global manufacturing theory?
Yeah, actually, we call that concept reverse globalization, right?
Okay.
And this is something that I have also hearing quite often a few days ago, regarding that we have to think again what is the limit of globalization, and when we need to bring back some of the production. So in the future, many companies and actually governments, they are going to make a scouting of technologies that they are able to bring that manufacturing back, because today is a must, but tomorrow could be actually in other scenario the need to produce.
So we keep talking about this crisis, but a lot of governments are talking about a world where crises like this could be regular. And so are you suggesting that governments now need to look at this reverse globalization as a real trend, as a real thing for them to consider?
Yeah, I believe that I strongly believe that this is going to be the big topic in the coming years. I will say that an additional reason, sectors like service, they're going to be highly impacted in terms of mobility, will be
Yeah.
reduced. So they will be no other way that the leaders they will just turn their head to other sectors that they could bring in the short time higher yeah, growth for the economies and for the companies. So I strongly believe that the unbalance created in the last 60 years of production, so much production made far away, they had to again trying to create a certain balance.
It's a pretty big change. It's a pretty big change in strategy. Do you think that that's something that not only governments, but board directors of large manufacturers are sitting here discussing today?
Depending in the sector, but yes, the complete supply chain is gonna be restructured. Okay,
Okay.
trying to manage the risk differently. In the normal world that you can source your parts from many parts of the world, many places, and you assemble in certain country, shouldn't be an issue. But once you face situation that some of the places that source the parts, they are blocked or locked, then you can have a big problem because you can, for one or two parts, you cannot assemble the entire product. So you will try to at least split the source place in order to manage that risk, because if someone fails, still you can receive your goods or your part from different place.
So to mitigate risk, you think that
Yes.
factories are going to have to look at the sourcing of their goods in such a way that perhaps they're not so wholly reliant and dependent on different markets. I mean, I'm sure, I mean, I don't know about in the apparel industry, but I know that a lot of industries, they're sourcing their goods from sometimes, I don't know, 50 different places. And
Yeah.
so if one of them falls or 50 of them fall, like we have in this situation, it makes them extremely reliant on different types of sources, and therefore dangerous, don't you think?
Exactly. So yeah, obviously, when you manage the scale of one factory, sometimes when it's big, you are maybe even more efficient. You can in terms of costing, but maybe in the future, companies will think about splitting that in different countries or different areas, and manage not only the issue of or mitigation the risk, but also being more closer to the assembly installation factories, and also managing as well the exchange rate of the currency. So at the end, is the way to restructure your entire supply chain.
So the opportunities that present, well, okay, let me take a step back. Right now, we're obviously, as I said, in the eye of this storm. So no doubt there's strategy for what we're doing today, responding to the need, responding, like you're saying, having manufacturers that manufacture automotive parts, making ventilators and so forth. So there's the now problem, and then there's the post-COVID world, whatever that new normal looks like, yeah? So how can the technology that you've created, the 3D bonding, help and adapt to the issues now and then the issues post-COVID?
Yeah, this technology, 3D bonding, as I said, was born in the footwear industry, and
Yeah.
yes, brings the possibility to assemble product closer in the same region or continent of consumption. However, also brings the possibility for other sectors, such
Okay.
as car industry, to produce the seats without stitching, and as well for others such as backpacks, or even garment jackets or others. So the idea is to create locally that new knowledge basically is a technology that comes from digital to real. Engineers design a product in 3D, and they design the molding technology in order to produce those products, and is will be necessary to to go to see what the countries have. Actually, countries like Spain, we have certain strain in terms of engineers developing in 3D. So we will take the advantage of that and create the capabilities in order to produce locally.
You produce locally, which will obviously make it sustainable. That's something that is also a consideration. A lot of the people that we've been speaking with have been talking about sustainability and new business models that are going to emerge out of this type of crisis. Do you think that the world of manufacturing and supply chain is going to be looking at recreating more sustainable business models post-COVID?
Yeah, for several reasons. Obviously, when you think about locally, you think about less pollution as well, right? You think about the raw materials that they are produced with the regulations of our countries. You also think about generating other industry regarding producing sustainable raw materials, right? You also think about the circular economy, because if you produce locally and you want to reinsert the waste into the manufacturing process, obviously the proximity is a value. When that paradigm is shifted, then it opens the door to so many other benefits and so many other businesses regarding that. So many other layers of value that you put on top of your product, which also includes the service to the client. So there is a bond between the final consumer that somehow feels that the product has so much emotional link with the product and with the people that is producing that product.
I think you and I have spoken. We've spoken before, and before the coronavirus crisis, we were talking about how different types of customer demand was creating the need for custom, personalization in goods, and for that kind of link with the companies that they buy from. That still exists, of course, but the biggest driver right now seems to be the need of governments and manufacturing plants to become more sustainable and more local. Do you think that that's going to continue over the course of the next couple of years?
Yes. So sustainability has been the big trend the last 2-3 years, and it will continue. However, as we said, it's going to have a step of evolution. And
how do you mean?
Yeah, this step of evolution, I think, is the reverse globalization.
Tell me more about this. I mean, is this not the same as, say, reshoring? People wanting to bring their manufacturing back home or whatever it is. Do you think there are different drivers here?
Yeah, that concept actually has nothing against globalization, which has been a step forward of the economy in the world. It's the evolution of that. So we are gonna keep some of the strengths of the entire world commercialization of goods, but we are going to be much more efficient. So that's the way that is still all the countries will be connected. However, we will be more like IP system that we have many dots connected, instead of having one big dot going from centralization to split and many small. Will be the decentralized the source, and also will be share closer to the demand.
So you're still going to share knowledge, you're still going to share processes, etc. But what you're trying to do is that the actual sourcing of goods is going to be more local to where the consumer is.
Yeah, and then we come back to the area that we are living about digital.
Yeah.
Being digital allows that these technologies like 3D bonding or 3D printing today allows that reverse globalization in an
Yeah.
efficient way.
How realistic is it? I mean, we've been talking about 3D printing for a long time, yet the adoption rate of 3D printing across factories is not necessarily as prevalent or as widespread as you would imagine. Do you think that's going to change now?
Every technology has certain value. I believe that is the way that all those technologies that are going to work together, right? 3D printing, for instance, for our technology brings some value.
Yeah.
However, still there is a strong value for the injection molding technology with CNC.
Hmm.
However, this balance between that is the real efficiency to us. 3D printing brings speed, brings some design possibilities not possible with other traditional process. And the traditional, in terms of molding, brings high speed in production and lower cost. So it's even if you combine, actually the technology of 3D printing is being used with us and with other companies in making molds. So very, very fast you make the molds and you can produce on demand.
So this isn't something that is a pipe dream, 10 years away, 20 years away. This is something that can be implemented relatively quickly now.
Well, our technology is ready right now. The production line this year is going to be validated the technology in manufacturing environment.
Hmm.
So since this year and the coming, there are going to be several brands, large companies producing with this technology, and we are looking forward once we have industrialized in footwear. We look forward to develop all the sectors.
And so you'll expand this to outside to multiple types of sectors, not just the footwear side of things.
Exactly. Actually, we are increasing that complexity, especially in sizing.
Yeah.
Now we are gonna produce a backpack. Then we are happy because we are gonna make also an armchair, and then we go to the car seat. So it's gonna be exciting to see all those products coming to life.
And for you personally and for your business personally now, do you think that the coronavirus, the COVID-19 pandemic is fast tracking things for you?
For the word that I mean,
But
obviously it's we have been discussing it's obviously it's sad what is happening. However, we stay very positive because we are seeing that the world is changing so fast.
yeah.
The every paradigm is very hard to change, but when happen situations like that, the world change much faster. We can see now the connectivity of the teams working remotely is much more efficient in many ways. We live that. We are taking advantage of that. And also the world change the way to operate, and it's gonna speed very increase the speed penetration of technologies, the digital technologies in overall.
Everybody we've been talking to is also talking about how there's an opportunity here to become more digital as a business, to change the way that we work. You've just talked about as well lowering labor costs. I assume that that's because you require fewer people to work on sort of more labor intensive processes. Talk to me a little bit more about how labor costs could be
Yeah,
reduced.
it could sound maybe incredible, but to produce an standard footwear, a pair of shoes takes about 60 minutes to produce one pair.
Yeah.
So it's about actually 50 something tasks, different operations sequentially, one after the other. So with our technology, we just mostly basically cut the product, the upper parts, plug inside the mold, and with not more than 18 tasks, and 12 minutes, we can produce a shoe. So the cut in labor is about 75%. And if you see that picture, that you have a relation of 1 to 4, you copy, let's say, the labor cost of one country which pays $500 with other country that pays 2,000.
Right.
So you equalize the labor. Once you equalize the labor, then the decision to produce in one place or the other is not anymore
The barrier.
the barrier. Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so again, going back to the other point that you made about being closer to the customer. Pre-COVID, this was definitely a consideration. You know, there was a trend for people wanting things produced closer to them for sustainability issues, but also personalization issues. Do you think that that's a trend that's going to continue post-COVID?
It's going to continue. However, we understand that companies have some established capabilities in certain countries, and it's really hard to change from one day to the other. We are talking about big factories. It's going to be a shift, I'd say progressively, right? But however, we are going to see that maybe not only the companies, will be other forces trying to promote that the companies do that shift. So I think will be the combination of factors. From one side, the client, the consumer. From other side, the companies that they want to mitigate the risk, and also the governments that they also want to mitigate the risk, and they are going to make some promotion in order that companies turn and look more into local manufacturing.
I think what we're saying as well, and what we're seeing, is that for the first time in I don't know how long, the governments will probably get involved in the decisions with regards to recommending, anyway, how manufacturing works for the near future. And so they'll want to mitigate their risks, is what you're saying.
Yes. Hopefully it's in the way that it's still companies has the freedom to operate, and we are not going to see excessive control or protectionism by the government. But yes, it will be a different role play, I think, by the governments.
Certainly in the short term anyway, especially with the likes of PPE, you know, manufacturing personal protective equipment and ventilators and the kind of things that we need if this virus continues to go forward further. I think that perhaps maybe organizations or companies like you offering this type of solution and service might be very valuable to manufacturers and governments. Yeah.
Yes. There are sectors, as you said, the machinery for ventilators or other mechanical devices has to be strategic for governments. And although, yes, I can imagine, for instance, that shoes, it makes boots for military boots. Yeah. Now, if you want to produce a big amount of military boots in US, hardly you can make it. Yeah. Still, you had to bring parts from China, the upper parts, and finish the product in US. And in certain conditions, it won't be possible. Mm. So countries like United States, they had to see some technologies that they are able to produce basic products like boots in America in a larger scale, just in case.
Wow. And so imagine what then for right now with the protective equipment, you know, and for ventilators and so forth. I think there's going to be more of a demand for producing these things at home, which is one of the things that you're suggesting.
Yeah, definitely. I think governments will make a list of strategic sectors that has to be promoted and developed. So companies that they are operating in those sectors, there will be, I think, certain interaction with the government and different implications and different clients, I will say.
What opportunities are there, or what industries do you think are most likely to be disrupted by this kind of technology?
I envision the car industry in 3D bonding implementing it, because obviously this is fantastic industry that right now produce locally in cars in Europe, in Germany, and it's very, I think it's very suitable for 3D bonding. Right now, the seats, let's say the cover of the seats is made a little bit far in low-cost countries, but I can imagine that the seats are made in Germany with robots just placing the pieces inside the mold and then bonding their parts by their ends. Still in that way, the seat is breathable. I mean, the substrate still is breathable because it's not over molding. It's just bonding, 3D bonding.
Mm-hmm.
And then the product can have a different look. It will be, as I said, cheaper to produce, could be customized in a different way, that the seat can have different designs and customization level, right? So it's an extra, it's a layer additional of value to the car. So I think that the car industry will be highly disrupted with it. As well, the design possibilities, how modern it looks a little bit sportive and futurist. So I can imagine companies like Tesla trying to have a minimal look inside, doing that. And as well, all the companies, with the new generation of cars, that they are electric cars, if you see the design look is different. So
Yeah.
what they project outside, they want to project it inside. And yes, this technology will bring that new vision inside the car.
So the opportunities are quite big for not just the footwear and apparel. I mean, I imagine that this kind of 3D bonding techniques can be used across the board, and every company is looking for low labor costs and making something that's sustainable and making something closer to people. What are the challenges that lie ahead?
It requires, I think, challenges, yes.
Yeah.
However, companies like in the car industry, they are used to that. So for them, it will be an additional challenge. Obviously, it's in a strong interaction with innovation teams. There are
Okay.
projects.
So do you, that's a good point. So do you think that there will be a little bit of resistance to this because they don't know it and they don't see how it could be used? Is that what one of the challenges are?
Well, I think they are receptive to.
Okay, good.
Yes. So the good thing, I can talk about different sectors. The footwear industry, not all the companies have innovation departments. It's limited, the amount. So for them, it's quite normal to adapt to do a medium and long-term planning of development, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. Makes sense for them. In the car industry as well, yes. So in companies with that profile, with innovation team, innovation budget, this is very, very interesting for them.
I guess right now you must have your hands full in terms of opportunities because of the situation that we're currently in. But you must be helping out a lot of people, a lot of governments, a lot of manufacturing plants to try to fast track a lot of this. Yeah.
Yes. There are especially large corporations that their ambition, Americans, I would say, there is a trend, obviously, with the last couple of years with the new government in U.S. with that message of increasing tax barriers and other in footwear has been drastic, right?
Yeah.
Boots, safety. So they are looking very much to Mexico, to U.S. So we are helping them to develop those production lines, either in US or in Mexico, and in Europe as well, where we are. So, but again, and still we are working in these two main or two big markets. However, this technology is going to be implemented in every region. So in Asia, obviously for Chinese or Asian market, which is extremely important. We are also planning to do cooperations with local manufacturing.
It seems like there's a huge opportunity right now to look at this kind of thing, and obviously, given the current crisis, most organizations will be looking for ways to make things sustainable, make things locally. This is definitely a consideration moving forward. What advice, and I think I've asked you this before, what advice do you think you would give to supply chain and manufacturing people right now where they are? Do you think that they should be looking at this kind of thing?
I would say that one first suggestion is to be inclusive, in the sense that your current supply chain, your current suppliers, right? Chinese, Asian suppliers, how we are going to work with them, explaining, obviously they are going to understand easily, how we are going to manage that their investment we direct in a different way, that we don't have to jump from China to Indonesia to Vietnam, from Vietnam to Cambodia, and then to Ethiopia. No, we said we had to bring new technologies that there allows us to produce locally, and eventually you can be part of it because you have the knowledge, you are reliable, we have a connection, we know how we work each other. However, think about that maybe you invest or co-invest closer to us. So now it's gonna be a new time of creativity in business to manage the source, the supply chain differently. So obviously depends of the companies, depends of the relation. There are so many variables. So the ones that they are able to take better advantage of that strong relation they have with their suppliers, they will change the game. Yeah, I think.
It's a very interesting point that you make there in terms of game changing. The companies that will embrace the opportunities that are available to them through creativity perhaps will be the companies that will have a better time of transitioning to the post-COVID world. What do you think of that point?
Yeah, obviously, yes. And that's our challenge right now in the footwear, which is our main field that we know the best. The strengths are really right now maybe on balance, let's say geographically. So how we are going to do that? We not only, as I said, manage the risk differently, or the investment, but also how we are gonna bring value in the local manufacturing. And I can tell you examples, right? It's like I'm gonna have a big factory for Europe, or will be one factory every country, or one factory every certain amount of population, or we are going to produce in the store. So we had to open a new challenge to the sourcing departments, and it passed through innovation team. So
Right.
yeah, and also financial, because we have even made some chart. This is really, in my opinion, was really easy to visualize the benefit. If you see the numbers, public numbers of Nike, Adidas, Puma, and Amazon, we have done the last 4 years. This is quite interesting. Nike has a turnover about 44 billion. right? And they have inventories of about 11 billion.
Okay.
11 billion share between inventories and receivables. It's more or
Right.
less half and half. Receivables obviously is big because it's long-term delivery, etc. And if you check Adidas, it was 28%, 3% more. And Puma was 32%, 7% more. And if you check the net profit and the growing rate, the inventories plus the net earning and the growing was 42% for all of them.
Wow.
Exactly 42%, the same number. So it means that Nike, what has less inventory, has more in net earning or in growth.
So if you have a chance to influence that and actually reduce those inventories, then the margins will increase as well.
It's exactly one-to-one correlation. So
right.
when the CFO of the company sees that, they could be engaged
Yeah.
in the
So on top of margins, which are hugely important, which obviously you've discussed lowering labor costs as well, but you have a chance to create a more sustainable business model and have a chance at getting something local and to their, local, so that it's close to the consumer, which means personalization, etc. So there are quite a lot of upsides here.
We are talking with companies. So it's about to make it profitable.
Yeah.
Obviously you want to have values for the consumer, which is the end, is the goal. However, companies have the end goal to increase the net earning. So
Yeah.
if that reverse globalization increase the profit of the company, then it's feasible.
Yeah.
So the company has to scout which technologies in the medium and long term they are really making profitable the local for local, right? So when they in that moment the CEO is hands on in this process. Obviously, the CFO will be, because they will obviously know that it is profitable, and then sourcing as well. Remember that the mobility is going to change very much in the coming years. Likely, there won't be so many flights to Asia in the next 24 months.
Yeah.
There will be less. People will be not really comfortable flying so much. So we obviously will use more digital technology to communicate, but we will try to fly less. So this also combined is it's gonna change the game. Yeah.
Well, on that note, Adrian, it's been fantastic to talk to you and to hear about this. I think we'll definitely keep an eye on you and see where things are going. Thank you so much for coming on FinTV and telling us more about this 3D bonding technology and the implications that it has, or the applications it has for reverse globalization.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Maria. Always a pleasure.
See you soon. Thank
See
you so
you.
much. And for those of you watching, see you in the next episode of FinTV. Thank you.